On November 28th of 2023, 33-year-old Hillary Ellington Brown was taken off life support at the Ascension Sacred Heart Hospital. Her cause of death? Complications from lidocaine toxicity. And who was to blame? Well, we'll get into that and Hillary's story, but first, let's talk a little bit about today's modern silent killer, cosmetic surgery. Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. My name is Sydney, and if you are new here, this is a place where we can talk about true crime, spooky, scary stories, dark history, or anything else I got going on in my brain. And let's talk about where plastic surgery first came from. So the term plastic surgery is actually from a Greek word called plastikos, which means to mold or to form. And it's thought that the most simplest forms of plastic surgery date all the way back to 800 BC. There are two main types of plastic surgery, reconstructive and cosmetic. Cosmetic is, of course, used to enhance certain features. It's usually elective surgery used to boost confidence and things like that. Whereas reconstructive surgery is more to heal the body or to kind of replace what is lost after a trauma. Some of the most common plastic surgeries are terms that you've probably heard of before, things like rhinoplasties, facelift, eyelid surgery, breast augmentation, although it's important to note that the most popular cosmetic surgery in 2023 was liposuction, which is fat removal. And of course, with any kind of surgery, there are risks. For example, a very popular procedure called a BBL, or a Brazilian butt lift, has a mortality rate of 1 in 3,000, which, when you think about it, those odds are not very good. And there are countless examples of people who have been scarred, maimed, or even have died because of plastic surgery. For example, a woman named Tamara went in to see a surgeon named Dr. Ricardo Samiter in Miami, and she went in for a very simple procedure, a tummy tuck and a thigh trim. And this doctor promised her a very quick 1.5 hour surgery and a smooth recovery. In reality, though, the procedure took 5 hours, and Tamara was bleeding so much that Dr. Ricardo had to sit her in an upright position to slow the bleed as he was stitching up her wounds. And after waking up, Tamara realized that she couldn't stand up straight, a flaw that took over a year to correct. So she obviously sued this doctor for $2.3 million, which she was awarded. And this doctor, Dr. Ricardo, also got his license taken away. Or we could talk about Denise, a woman who traveled to South Korea, which, as most of us know, this is a hotspot for plastic surgery. And she was going to get a double eyelid procedure done, which is something that is very, very common in South Korea. Denise was so excited at the prospect of just looking more young and beautiful, but she was very taken aback when she woke up. It turns out that the doctor had, without Denise's permission, taken fat from her stomach area and injected it into her forehead, which is horrible to do anything without a person's consent. But on top of that, the doctor also messed up her eyelids, and there were now these large creases where her eyelids should be, and it just looked so asymmetrical and unnatural. And even her friends and family commented on it. It wasn't just something that Denise herself noticed. It was noticeable to other people as well. And I just can't imagine the mental torment that it would be to have to look at yourself in the mirror and just not like who you are. Or we could talk about Waleska Costello, who was performing illegal BBLs out of her apartment in the Bronx. She had multiple clients that would come to her clinic inside of her apartment, and she would give them silicone injections into their backside, which is wrong for multiple reasons, because A, she didn't have a medical license, she wasn't trained to do this procedure in any way, shape, or form, but also the silicone that she was using was imported from another country, and it was for hair and body use only, external body use. And she was injecting it into the human body. She would often discourage her clients from going to the doctor if they had pain after the injection. And one specific time, there was a patient that had fluid and blood leaking out of the injection site, and Waleska told her to put crazy glue over the injection site to keep it shut, which is so unhinged. So unhinged. Waleska was caught and served a year in prison in 2011, but then she got out kept doing these injections. So again, in 2014, she was arrested again, but this just didn't stop her. Finally, as you can imagine, disaster ended up striking in 2017 when 48-year-old Lesbia came in to Waleska's clinic for butt injections. Everything seemed fine at first, but then she ended up randomly passing away from an embolism, which is a blockage in blood vessels, the following year. Well, as you can imagine, it was found out that the embolism was caused by these silicone injections. So Waleska was charged with manslaughter and was given 4 to 8 years, which obviously isn't enough for literally killing a person. What the fuck? I was so upset when I read that. I was like, that can't be right. And I was like researching and I double checked it and I was like, what the fuck? This woman needs to be behind bars forever, for life. And this is just scratching the surface of the horror stories that come when people do plastic surgery incorrectly. But let's focus on one surgeon today. Let's focus on Dr. Ben Brown. Ben grew up in a small town in Minnesota, and when he was a kid, his dad would take him on all of these different medical mission trips, which then inspired Ben to become a doctor himself. He started school to become a plastic surgeon in 2003, and then he graduated from Georgetown University in 2015. He and his wife Stephanie and their 2 kids then ended up moving down to Florida, where Ben started working at this place called Gulf Coast Plastic Surgery right out of graduation. And then in April of 2015, he and his wife Stephanie got a divorce. And then in 2017, Ben opened his own plastic surgery office called Restore Plastic Surgery. And I do have to say, Dr. Ben Brown, he had a pretty successful clinic. Restore Plastic Surgery was voted best in the Bay for like plastic surgery clinics from 2018 to 2023. And as I dove deeper into this Facebook page, I found some very interesting things in the About Me section. The first thing is that it touts that Dr. Ben Brown is a board certified plastic surgeon, which I should hope so. If you have your own clinic, that you would be board certified. It just kind of made me chuckle because I'm like, I would hope that this man is board certified. But it also, there's a specific quote in there that I have to read because I think it's just very ironic given the circumstances that are to follow. But it says verbatim in this little About Me section that Ben Brown plans like Leonardo da Vinci and operates like Michelangelo. Oh, our man. He's so pristine. The page also boasts about how consulting and safety are all of the highest priority at Restore Plastic Surgery. And even if you go to the Google reviews, which they are still up, I kind of don't know why, but the majority of the reviews are positive. You have a few bad eggs in there, but it's kind of interesting. So Ben and Hillary Ellington met in 2021 and they were married not even a full year later. So they basically met and got married just like super quick, fast relationship. They were in love, okay? But let's talk a little bit about Hillary. So Hillary was originally from Mobile, Alabama, and after she graduated high school, she went to the University of Mississippi where she got her bachelor's in chemical engineering. So this was one smart cookie. She was very, very smart. After they got together, Hillary started working at Restore Plastic Surgery. She would help with procedures and patient care, and she was described by the clients and her coworkers as being extremely kind. She had 3 children from a previous relationship, and she was described as being an amazing mom, energetic and caring, and evidently Ben really loved Hillary's kids as well, so they all kind of just became this really happy blended family from an outsider's perspective. But you know, things weren't always peachy keen. Hillary's dad said that their relationship was volatile and that Hillary wasn't happy in the marriage. And that brings us to November 21st of 2023. Hillary was at Restore Plastic Surgery, not as an employee, but as a patient. She was gonna have a whole bunch of procedures done in one day, and I'm gonna list them off because there were a lot of them. So she was going to have a miniature muscle placation / abdominal scar revision, bilateral arm lipo, lip injections, and an ear adjustment done, all in that like one little bout of surgery. She had a few surgeries done prior to this, and of course she trusted her husband, so she was not worried at all. And like she did with the patients that came in and out of Restore, she mixed her own IV bags and took a handful of what was later described as multicolored pills, which did include Valium. Dr. Ben got started on his magic, and everything was going perfectly to plan. Hillary was doing so well that she actually sutured her own skin back together after the first procedure. And it was at this point that the couple noticed that Hillary's feet were getting kind of twitchy. They noted that this was kind of weird, but Ben started on Hillary's arm liposuction, and this is when the twitching got worse. And it was at this point that Hillary said that her vision was starting to get kind of blurry and she was seeing orange. Dr. Ben probably didn't know this, but all of these signs and symptoms that Hillary was experiencing, they are all signs of lidocaine toxicity, which lidocaine, if you don't know, is a local anesthetic that is oftentimes used in plastic surgery. But even though Hillary was saying all of these things, Dr. Ben just kept injecting lidocaine into her face. After a short while, Hillary started having a seizure and fell unconscious. And it was at this point that the medical assistant that was helping with the surgery asked the doctor if she should call 911. In most cases, from what I understand, if any sort of procedure that is not, at a hospital, if anything starts to go south, the appropriate measures are to stop what you're doing and call 911. But Dr. Ben declined this offer and kept operating. This is just the worst combination of different components to have happened, because this medical assistant, she was new, and so she was just following orders. Even though her gut told her that she probably should have called 911 and gotten medical help for Hillary, she didn't want to disobey her boss. So as the minutes ticked by, Ben started frantically asking around to his coworkers, asking what Hillary had taken, what pills had she taken. But nobody documented this information. And of course, this is against protocol. You're always supposed to document exactly what the patient is taking. But since Hillary kind of mixed her own drugs, took her own meds, nobody had any idea what was in her system. Finally, after 20 minutes of Hillary seizing, Ben told the medical assistant to call 911, and he started to perform CPR on his wife. The paramedics busted in to restore, and they found Hillary in full cardiac arrest. They then rushed her to the hospital, but she did have massive swelling in her brain due to the lack of oxygen, and so she was pretty much just fully in a coma by this point. While Hillary was fighting for her life, Ben took time a few days later on November 24th to write a Facebook post, and I searched high and low to find the original post, but I could only find it quoted in an article, so I will be reading it here, but just know that if you go hunting for it, I don't think it exists anymore. We need prayers for a miracle. Hillary had a cardiac arrest on Tuesday afternoon. We called 911 and started CPR. Her heart came back, but her brain is not doing well. She's been in a coma since she went unconscious on Tuesday. Hillary Ellington Brown, you are my soulmate, my world, my everything. Please come back, please. And again, from an outsider's perspective, this looks like a man that is just pleading to the universe for help. Anybody, please pray for my wife, blah, blah, blah. But Hillary's father says that in real life, this was so far from the truth, because Ben was completely focused on money. Evidently, Ben and Hillary's insurance was going to be up by the end of the month. So Ben straight up told Hillary's dad, I need Hillary to be off life support on or before November 30th, or else her kids aren't going to get any of the life support money. Which, okay, I can see being concerned for her children that they're not going to get money. But also, wouldn't you want to try to help your wife in any way, or try to see if she's going to pull through? I don't know, 9-10 days doesn't seem like enough to really know if somebody's going to be good or not. Do you know what I mean? I don't know, a little fishy. He also allegedly told Hillary's dad that he needed to sell all of Hillary's stuff and file for bankruptcy. It's just extremely sick. That's what you're worried about when your wife is dying. Not only is your wife dying, but you literally killed her. And you're cool with that? And you're just thinking about money? And like I said at the beginning of the video, Hillary did remain on life support until November 28th of 2023, and then she did pass. And according to Hillary's father, Ben started selling her stuff almost immediately after she died. It just shows the lack of remorse of this sick individual. This whole thing was completely avoidable and didn't have to happen in any sense of it. And Ben just has no fucking remorse for killing his own wife. Thankfully, the Florida Health Department got on this case super quick after it happened. They started learning some of the facts. They found out that Ben didn't try to save his wife for a full 20 minutes. Not only that, but Restore Plastic Surgery didn't even have anything to deal with a medical emergency. They didn't have oxygen tanks, they didn't have a crash cart, just very basic things that a clinic should have. And they found out pretty quick that Ben was not following the proper procedure for administering lidocaine, obviously, duh, but that was just very basic level investigation. They dug a little deeper and a whole bunch of other shit came to the light. For one, Dr. Ben Brown was performing unauthorized procedures, and even worse, he was letting his employees, untrained employees, perform certain procedures. No medical training, no licensing, and they were just getting up in these patients. Fucking crazy. Something I thought was very interesting is that Restore had their controlled substances just like in an unlocked cabinet, and employees would just go in there and take a little something before a surgery to take the edge off, which is a fucking huge no-no. These untrained people were getting high off pills and performing these surgeries. What? Another major problem at Restore Plastic Surgery was that they were not following the proper sterilization protocols, which, if you know anything about surgery, it has to be sterile because you don't want to be introducing any foreign particles, objects into the human body. That can kill ya. One former employee said that their sterilization process was literally just rinsing the instruments under distilled water. And their sterile processing room looked like this. So that's fucking disgusting, but okay. So the clinic was fucking up before the surgery with sterilizing the tools, getting things ready for surgery during the surgery, because people not trained were doing these procedures and unauthorized procedures, but also Dr. Ben would usually let his assistants give aftercare advice to the patients, and it was almost completely inaccurate. So these patients would go home with the wrong advice on how to take care of their wounds. So it is no surprise that Hillary wasn't the only one that was affected by this clinic. Earlier this year, the Pensacola News Journal interviewed a few different people that had went to Restore Plastic Surgery and got their experiences. For example, a nurse named Joy went to Restore Plastic Surgery after her double mastectomy to get reconstructive breast surgery. And Dr. Ben Brown touted a 99% success rate. And so she went into this surgery having no worries at all. She was excited to move on with this new chapter in her life. But when she woke up, she was in extreme pain, and she was pretty sure that her lung had been nicked during this surgery. The area where, there were scars and stuff, it was extremely painful, and it started to blacken after the surgery. Joy, obviously being very concerned, went to the hospital, and the staff called Dr. Ben, and they kind of just asked, is this normal? We don't really deal with plastic surgery. What's to be expected? And Ben assured them that this was all part of the normal healing process, so they sent Joy home. But her problems persisted. Even a month after her surgery, the wounds were oozing pus and fluids, and she was in so much pain she couldn't drive. She could barely walk or lift her hands over her head. She ended up going back to Restore for an additional surgery, but the infection raged on. And it was at this point that, thankfully, thank God, Ben ended up sending her to a hospital where she was admitted. Turns out, surprise, surprise, Joy had contracted 4 different types of hospital-acquired bacteria, which, if you don't know, these types of pathogens are very, very easy to avoid if you're using proper technique and proper sterilization. Funny how that works, huh? She had to endure physical therapy, and she still takes meds to this day to deal with the nerve pain that he caused. Brandy was another client who visited Restore in 2021, and she got a number of procedures done, including arm liposuction. And the finished product left her arms looking all lumpy and uneven. But Ben also, without her consent, injected fat into her backside. I don't know why people think that's okay to just do things without people's consent, but that's what he did. The worst part of this whole thing was that the staples that were put in her stomach came undone, leaving this giant hole in her stomach, like a literal hole in her stomach. And she had to go back to Dr. Ben 2 different times to try to fix the problem that he caused. Brandy was told that this was completely normal, everything was healing just fine, but it obviously wasn't fine. It obviously wasn't fine. It took years for her to heal, and she still has lasting nerve damage. And then there was Jane. Jane went in for a mini mommy makeover in 2022, and she was super hyped up because she had heard wonderful things about Restore. And so after her 6-hour surgery, she woke up and realized that Ben had done all the things, but he had also injected fat into her backside. I don't know why plastic surgeons keep doing this. Why do they think that's okay? I don't get it. 2 weeks post-op, the sutures holding all of the wounds together just kept coming undone, and fluid was leaking out of these things. So she went back to Dr. Ben, and he stitched her back up and sent her on her way. She was instructed to clean and pack the wound every day with acetic acid and gauze, but it just wasn't helping. The wounds kept opening up, and it got so bad that Jane's husband said that he could actually see her muscle wall through these open wounds, which is just fucking crazy. Pretty soon she began to notice that the skin around the wounds, they were turning black, which I didn't mention this before, but that is literally necrosis. That's your skin and the areas around it dying. So she went to the ER, and the doctor told her that whoever had given her this aftercare advice, completely inaccurate, just dead wrong. By this point, the wound had gotten 9 inches wide and 4 inches across, which is fucking crazy. And I just have to admire these women, because if I had to deal with my own wounds being that open or that infected, I don't think I'd be able to do it. I'm okay with other people's stuff, I can deal with that, but my own stuff I cannot deal with. So kudos for these women for just literally surviving this, because holy fuck, you think you're gonna come out looking all beautiful and amazing, and you come out looking scarred and with permanent nerve damage. Jane, literally, her family thought that she was gonna die. That's how bad it was, and it was really bad. The same journalist interviewed some of the former employees of Dr. Ben Brown, and it kind of let us see a little bit into the work ethic and attitude of Dr. Ben. Though he might have planned like Leonardo da Vinci and operated like Michelangelo, his attitude was much more in line with Paul Gauguin, okay? By 2021, this man was just becoming very, very paranoid. He was frustrated with his staff at all times. He would yell at them, call them demeaning names. He would accuse them of stealing, and he would even cut their hours to the point that they would just have to quit. And according to these employees, the last few years that Restore was open, Ben just didn't give a fuck about his patients or his clinic. He just let his employees do everything because he just didn't want to do it anymore. So anyways, during the Florida Health Department investigation, they uncovered the fact that many of Ben's patients tried to file medical malpractice lawsuits against him, but none of them went through. Weird, right? Why is that? Well, even though Ben didn't care about his patients, he did care about his money. So he made all of his patients sign something called an arbitration agreement before going under the knife. And by signing it, it meant that this patient gave up their rights to a jury trial if they ever took Ben to court for a malpractice lawsuit. So, of course, no lawyer would sign up to defend a person that was going up against Dr. Ben Brown. It just didn't make sense. They were going to lose the case because there would be no jury trial. Ben found his loophole, and he knew exactly what he was doing. As soon as this investigation was done, the health department immediately put in an emergency order to bar Dr. Ben Brown from practicing any type of medicine unless it was under the direct supervision of a doctor. And I don't know why they couldn't just completely revoke his medical license. I don't know if because it was a rushed order, if that's just an easier way to make sure he wasn't operating on people. I couldn't find any information about that, but he couldn't practice, really. Their final report stated, the level of disregard Dr. Brown paid to patient safety, even when the patient was his wife, indicates that Dr. Brown is unwilling or incapable of providing the appropriate level of care to his future patients. I kind of love how the health department just, in so many words, said, you're a fucker. You're a fucker. You're not going to be practicing anymore. I just kind of love that. On June 17th of 2024, Ben Brown did turn himself in and was subsequently charged with 1 count of manslaughter by culpable negligence. If found guilty for his crimes, he could be sentenced to life in prison and a $10,000 fine. But he did plead not guilty and demanded a jury trial. He's currently out on a $50,000 bond, and he was set to appear in court on September 3rd of 2024, but I couldn't find any information about it, like at all, no future court dates, so I don't really know what's happening. I'm gonna try to keep my eye on this because I just have to know what happens in this case, because there's no way that he can't be found guilty. So I'm just keeping a watchful eye on that. If you guys have any info that I happen to miss, please let me know, okay? Please let me know. Hillary's parents were obviously devastated, but they are continually fighting for Hillary's justice. They want to pass something called Hillary's Law, and this would prevent any medical professional from operating on their own family members, which I think is a fine idea. I don't know why that's not a thing already, but yeah. So that is the crazy look at this whole Hillary Ellington Brown situation. It is just crazy. I ended up reading a little article about this like months ago, and I just knew I had to talk about it, but it's just been on the back burner. So I'm glad that we finally got to sit down and discuss this. Again, if there's any updates that I happen to miss, please reach out, let me know. But yeah, that's the tea on that. I hope you guys all had a very lovely holiday and are having a happy new year. 2025, that's wacky and wild. But yeah, that's all I have for you guys today. I hope that you enjoyed. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe if you're interested. What'd you guys do for the holidays? Let me know. Let me know. Mine is pretty low key, but I want to know all about your guys' holidays. So please keep me updated. How are you guys? I'm going to get going. I hope that you take care of yourself today. Drink lots of water. Eat something. Get some food in your belly, girly pop. And keep being the bad bitches that you are. Bye, guys.